to Shalala Dipo. This is my introductory video to my new channel. Try to make it as short and concise as possible. Um, Basically, I've made a few YouTube videos prior to this video about some general topics. I'm someone that is pretty passionate about a number of social issues. So I really, after doing some thinking, I decided to kind of narrow down my niche to a more specific audience. And at this point in time, I'm trying to bring something that is really absent, from the market, or so to speak, or where I see there seems to be a gap or a lack of information. And that is specifically to the unique the unique political, social, economic situation in Africa as a whole, and in Nigeria specifically. We're going to get into that. We're going to get into even the definition of Nigeria and the relevance of that. But most significantly, it's going to take a very unorthodox approach to a very unorthodox problem. Recent history has shown that there's no precise textbook solution to the present situation that we have in Nigeria and Africa by extension. Say is we're really going to have to think outside of the box. There was a principle that I learned back in secondary school in Nigeria, which was basically drawing formulas from first principles. And the concept of any education or any concept, no matter how complex it may be, must always be relatable to first principles. At this point, we're in such a chaotic and confused state that we're really going to have to break everything down to what I would call common sense, basic principles, and rebuild from the ground up. We're not going to necessarily take it from the point of view of the Oyibo or the Eurocentric educational worldview. We're going to take this thing from a common sense view. We're going to take a completely different approach. Now, the main principles that I'm going to use in this series of videos is based on certain concepts. One of those concepts is there is no problem that exists without a solution. This is something I sincerely believe. No matter how complex, no matter how convoluted, no matter how twisted a problem may appear to be, there is a solution to that problem. We may not like the solution. The solution may not be what we expected or what it want to be. And I think that that is really part of the problem that we have. But there is a solution. Now, what I hope to do in this series is present different perspectives from first principles. One of the first principles that I'm going to use in this discussion is that of skepticism, which means we're going to have to take away everything. We're going to strip everything that we think we knew. We're going to have to start from the very beginning. And we're going to deal with the principles of nationality, country, identity, what these things mean from a fundamental basis. Like I already said, I'm not going to use any textbook. I'm not going to I might reference things here and there to buttress my point. But the main methodology that I'm going to use is that of analogy. And that analogy is going to be basically from a microcosmic point to a macrocosmic point, which basically means I'm going to use a small situation and project that onto a larger situation. And with this process of analogy, I hope to draw certain conclusions along the way. I'm also going to reference history, more specifically the history of nations that have seemed to be successful. However, we're going to choose to define success, which we're going to do along the way in the past, and what were the qualities of those nations and how did they succeed, you know? Now, like I said, this is an introduction video. I haven't written anything down. I'm basically just improvising from my head. This is something that I'm very passionate about. This is something I've thought long and hard about. This is something that occupies my thoughts constantly. It's nothing contrived. I'm not doing this for any other reason. At this point, I'm just starting off this channel. I'm not necessarily doing it for any financial. My motivations are not financial. My motivations are purely altruistic. Even if this generation, even if, you know, a lot of people don't get what I'm saying or are not at the same page with me immediately, I hope that along the time, or even who knows, maybe after I'm gone, then people can reference this. But that's the good thing, you know, about having, you know, these means to record, you know, information, to put things down. And that's basically what I'm going to try to do. I'm not perfect. I might make some mistakes. I might have to come back and clarify, because I'm not someone that really likes to write things down so much. I like to, you know, go off how I feel in the moment. I go off, like I said, this is something I've thought about extensively, and it's something that I'm passionate about. And I feel like what you're passionate about is a short indication of something that you're meant to be doing on this planet. I would like to say, first of all, that the most important thing and attitude that we, and I'm talking mainly to our so-called Nigerians and Africans, the first thing we have to do, if we're really going to address our unique social, political, and economic problems, is we're going to have to be accountable. We're going to have to take responsibility. It's very easy to point a finger to the leaders and say, these leaders, they bad, they the worst, they this, they that, and the other. But we have to remember that each of these leaders are a product of our society. Most of us in that position, in those positions they're in, will do no better than they. This problem is systemic. It is social. It is general. It's not necessarily the individual that sits in that office of the president or any office of authority that you can put the blame upon. Most revolution start from the ground up, historically, not from the top down. Once a system is established, a social order is established, it is maintained from the top down. But a revolution usually starts historically from the ground up, from the grassroots. And it starts with ideas. So I'm going to challenge each one of you, any listener out there, to have an open mind and to be skeptical. Every single thing that we think we believe, at this point in time, we're going to have to challenge it. Because whatever we've been doing up to this point has not been working. We're one of the most religious countries in the world. Religion has not vindicated us. It has not redeemed us. It has not made us a more moral country, and it's not made us more effective. So religion is obviously not the answer. I have nothing against religion specifically, or if I do, that is not something I'm going to bring out at this time. I will address religion at a certain point. When I get to that point, I will address it. And I will address different issues at different times. But I'm going to start from the very, very, very beginning. In my first video after this introduction, I'm going to start from the very beginning. And my first video is going to be basically, we're going to have to go all the way to the beginning. And that is civilization. What is civilization? What are the fundamentals of civilization? Like I said, I'm not referencing any textbook. I'm not referencing any European writer. You have to understand that all of these European writers, all of these textbooks are people like us, like me and you. These ideas are not necessarily divinely inspired. These ideas are not necessarily heaven sent. These are men like me and you that have come up with these ideas, promoted them, and they've become accepted, sometimes after resistance, after many years. You and I can use the power God gave us to reason for ourselves. And that's why I call this channel Common Sense Solution. Common sense. And that's all I'm going to address. You don't have to have a PhD. Don't have to have an MSc. A lot of these people that have all of these things, they don't avail them of nothing. A lot of these people may be successful in their careers, but in their personal life, a lot of times they're ineffective. A lot of times they're socially inept. You see them in a social setting, they can't function because they can deal with theory and not practical. What I'm dealing about is practical and reasonable solutions. Okay? Like I said, this is an introduction. This is my first video on this channel. And the next video, I'm going to be talking about the principles of civilization. The principle of civilization. And I'm going to be talking about the principles of nationality. What does it mean to be a nation? These are the basic things that we have to define and we have to understand before we can even go to the second step. And like I said, the change is not going to come from our leaders. The change is going to come from you and from me. Just like what JFK said, ask not what your country can do for you, ask what you're going to do from your country. If there's any change going to come tonight from Nigeria, it's going to start from you, from the man in the mirror, like Michael Jackson said. Start with yourself. If each one of us make a change, if each one of us change ourselves for the better on a daily basis, we can really make a change on a large scale. Everything each one of us do every day affects somebody. It's not too small. Make a positive change in someone's life today, and I'm going to see you on the next video. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day. God bless.